Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Morgan, editor of Fleet Equipment, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Save Money on Fuel by Choosing the Right Oil for Your Fleet. I'd like to first off kick this off and say thanks to DA Lubricant Company, who is the webinar sponsor today. Thanks for the support. Because if you look at the oil space today, we had new API categories coming into the industry a couple years ago, different OEMs factory filling and recommending different oils, lots of choices out there to help you improve your efficiency and protect your engine. So we are going to get down to the bottom of this, of how to save up to 1%, 2% fuel economy, depending on your applications and your operations, over the traditional 15W40 oil that has been conventionally spec'd over the history here. So we're going to get to the bottom of this. First, before I introduce our presenters, let me get into some housekeeping items on the webinar platform so we're all on the same page here. First and most important is, after our little conversation here, we're going to have a live Q&A here toward the back half of this webinar. So if you have any questions as we're talking and going through some of our talking points, be sure to ask them in the Q&A box. You can just type your question in there, hit submit, and then we will answer those toward the back end of the back half of this webinar. We definitely want to get to your questions. So send them in as you think about them. Don't wait for the Q&A because you might forget it and you want to get your place in line for the Q&A. So send them as you think about them. That will help both sides of this out. The second part of this is we are recording this. It'll be available on demand for you to review or send to colleagues here later this week. You'll get an email with a link to the recorded webinar after we're done doing this. Looking at the widget bar at the bottom of your screen, you can open and close windows to kind of customize what you want to see. There's social, there's email, there's sharing. Feel free to use those. There's also an option to print certificates for attending today's webinar, just to show off that you did. If you need any help during the webinar, click the question mark box, and that can give you some helpful tips. And then finally, the go-to IT solution, hit F5 and it'll refresh the window and hopefully fix anything that you might be dealing with. All right, now we're going to get to the meat here. Let me introduce our presenters. Today we're talking with Jim Salmon, the technical manager for DA Lubricants Company, who's been with the company for nearly 10 years now. We have Ken Tiger, the director of gas recovery systems and Penn Grade 1 Lubricants, who also consults for the DA Lubricant Company. And finally, we have Nick Dixon. Nick is the territory business sales manager for DA Lubricants and Penn Grade 1 consultant. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining me here today. Glad to have you. Before we dive into the ROI, because I think this is a key component that we're going to definitely get to here, figuring out the ROI on oil spec, let's lay some groundwork. Can you give me an overview of what my options are in the heavy-duty diesel engine oil space today?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start off. Today's current API classification for diesel engines, whether it be on highway, off highway, industrial, whatever, is the CK. Now, as we know, through years of the API, they've always gone alphabetical up through starting at CA all the way up to where we are today with CK4. Back in 2007, CJ4 was introduced. CJ4 was kind of the beginning of what we call Tier 4 emissions for diesel engines. Now, at that point, diesel engines started dealing with after-treatment systems, which affect the fuel, which also affected the lubricant that you're using in those engines, all because of for EPA reasons and to treat the exhaust system or after-treatment system, not to plug them prematurely, things like that. So I was asked that a lot back at the time when the fuel sulfur level changed to 15 parts per million back in 2007. Everybody's asking, well, why does that have anything to do with the oil? Well, believe it or not, whether you like to or not, your car or your truck uses oil. If you're an over-the-road truck driver, or if you even got a stationary engine, something like that, you know for a fact that you don't go the entire oil change interval distance without adding some lubricant to it. Passenger cars, you don't notice it as much, but there are still components of that. And where's that oil going? Well, if it's not leaking, it's going somewhere else. It's going into your exhaust system. It's getting past the rings, getting past the valves, and all of that can affect it goes into the exhaust system and can affect the catalytic converter. The thing we deal with on the diesel side of it is a couple of different things. There are soluble organic fractions, which is basically soot. And then there are oxides of nitrogen, or NOx, as you'll hear it referred to. Those things are captured and or converted or incinerated in the exhaust system. Well, all of that played up, and the Tier 4 came in, Tier 4 1, Tier 4 2, all the way up to where we're at Tier 4 final, where we're at today and have been for a little while now with the low sulfur fuels. Part of the requirement for those oils was a lower ash content. And I get asked that a lot, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, lower ash. Ash is an acid neutralizer. I like to refer to it as the Tums or the Rolaids of the oil system. You've got oxygen, or you got nitrogen in the air that goes into the combustion chamber, and you've got sulfur, even though it's small amounts these days, you still got sulfur in the fuel. And when those two items are ignited during the combustion process, oxides of nitrogen and oxides of sulfur, sulfuric oxide, sulfuric acid, nitric acid are produced, and those are very corrosive. So you need a acid neutralizer in the oil. Well, with everything being reduced, the amount of ash that you need in that system is also required to be reduced. One of the reasons is the DPF. If you put a high ash engine oil in your crankcase, and during the combustion process, the acid levels are low, you're not using up all of that additive. So where's that additive going? It's building up into the exhaust system. And ash, I like to kind of use a generic thing like your fireplace. You throw a log into your fireplace, you set it on fire, the log disappears, and there's ash left over. You can do that 3 or 4 times or however many, and then eventually you got to clean that ash out. Exhaust system on a diesel is the exact same way with the DPF. So long story short, that's been the progression since 2007. Along with that came fuel economy. So how do we reduce fuel economy, or how do we improve fuel economy on a diesel engine, over-the-road truck, heavy duty? Well, the OEM has a lot to do with it, with the design of building of the engine. But the lubricant, people don't realize, can play a very big, as we'll show later on, a big financial gain by using the correct lubricant in those engine compartments. Anybody want to add anything to that?
No, well said, Jim. And just to piggyback what you said, many people were around then. They understood making that jump from the CJ4 to the CK4 technology. I mean, that was almost a decade in the making, not to mention the $500 million that they spent to create this new commercial category. And then when we got hit with the CK4, we also got hit with the new FA4 category, which I'll get into in a bit. But many of us remember making that jump from the CI4, CI4 Plus to the CJ4. And as Jim indicated, the CJ4 was really introduced to address all these extra emission systems that were being slapped on these engines: selective catalytic reduction, exhaust gas recirculation systems, diesel particulate filters. Heck, some of these engines are even employing catalytic converters. And remember back then when we were instructing, people like Jim and myself and Nick were instructing customers that you couldn't use that older technology oil in the CJ4 oils because of that higher SAP, sulfated ash, phosphorus, and sulfur. But you could run the CJ4 oils in those older legacy engines. So that was a perfect segue, Jim, it really into what we're talking about today. Now, fast forward to the CK4 and the FA4. The FA4 oils were really intended to provide the same benefits as the CK4 oils. Essentially put, when the CK4 oils were developed, the oil is now asked to do what the stacks used to do 20, 30 years ago, where they would literally just void that fine particulate soot material into the atmosphere. Obviously, we can't do that now, so the oil has to address that. now with the FA4, obviously you have to accommodate for the higher temperatures, the higher oil pressures, and the other demands created by the new designs and the technologies of the 2016 and newer engines. So think 2016 and that decade passed from the CJ4 to the CK4 and the FA4 technology. It's really, Jim, the precision and the tolerances in the engine hardware today that really make the engine hardware that much better, okay, even in comparison to the CJ4 oils. And it was all done with fuel economy and emissions in mind. Anything to add?
Yeah, and like both Jim and Kenny just stated, without telling my age, but I can tell you, starting back when I first started driving, my old one-stack Mac with a window in the back, we all drove down the highway, and all we noticed coming out of that exhaust was black. Well, as both Jim and Ken said, the government today has helped shape where we're going. And that exhaust pipe nowadays is clean, but by doing that, we've had to change everything from the engineering to the oils that we currently use today to help clean up that environment. And with what we can offer the fleets, the independent operator out there, there's some alternatives to help you improve your bottom line. And as we go forward, you'll see what we'll be able to offer you doing that. And that, I think we can all agree on. We can move on and give you some great information here during this webinar.
Yeah, and certainly one way to do that is to reduce the viscosity of the heavy-duty diesel engine oil offerings today. And we'll get more into the weeds with that. But I touched briefly on FA4, but a lot of people don't realize that the FA4 oils are not back applicable. They cannot be used in a commercial or compression ignited category engine, or at least those requiring that API commercial category. The F really doesn't have any significant meaning in FA4. The API committee simply didn't want it to sound like a C, okay? The A denotes that it's really the first chapter, and the 4 identifies it as for diesel engine. So that is really the origin behind FA4. The caveat with FA4, because the FA4 oils are actually offered in lighter viscosity when compared to the traditional 1540 oils of the CI4, CI4 Plus, CJ4, and CK4 respectively. The caveat with FA4 and their lighter viscosities is that it is, again, it's not simply interchangeable or back applicable with the CK4 and the older commercial or obsolete commercial category oils of today.
Right. And you're ahead of me here. I'm going to dive into my next question that follows up on FA4, but I do just want to back up and echo your point of CK4 is the jumping away. If you went from CJ4, you're at CK4 right now, and that's the one that has wide use and backwards compatibility. The FA4, as you've noted here, lower viscosities, improved fuel efficiency, but you definitely want to check with your engine manufacturers because different manufacturers have different recommendations for different model year engines of what you can and can use FA4 in which applications. So if you guys can let's kind of dig into that. Let's get right into the weeds here. FA4, so you mentioned lower viscosity. Can you kind of take me through what that is? And when you say viscosity, it's going to be that means it's going to be a thinner oil, right? So like, how are you able to provide the durability that the oil's real primary function is there for?
Yeah, that is a great question, and really the concern in many end users' minds today when you're discussing, the potential for a boost in fuel economy, and the direct line with that is the reduction in viscosity. The concern in everybody's mind is the trade-off that they may be forced to do from a fuel economy versus a durability standpoint.
Right.
And that's where running the right chemistry and the right base oil technology, and having that synergistic fashion to make sure that the engine oil that you have just produced is not only going to boost the fuel economy, but also be safe to use in that application is really paramount. Okay. One thing that I would like to touch is, it was recently assessed that the market penetration of an FA4 10W30, that's the one that's most commonly brought up today, has been quite low, Jason. It's actually less than 1% market share in the North American heavy-duty diesel lubricant sales. And again, the reason for that is the lack of back applicability that FA4 offers. So if you have a fleet, let's just say of 40 units out in the yard, maybe 35 of those units are of the older legacy model, okay, even pre-2006. One oil, CK4, could literally be used in all of those units. Now you introduce FA4, and that alone would suggest that you would need a standalone lubricant, because those FA4 engines are designed to run a lighter viscosity oil and an entirely different oil than the CK4 offerings today. So there's a lot to take into consideration. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. We'll get into fuel economy and the benefits of running a lighter viscosity in just a minute. But Jim, is there anything you want to add to that?
A couple things. Number one, going back to what Nick said, as an old diesel mechanic, we used to look at the stack to determine what our problem was. Now the saying is, if it's smoking, it's broken. So it makes diagnosing a little bit more difficult, but a lot of electronics to help out with that today. But yeah, as Kenny was saying, the FA4, we're starting to see more and more OEMs, and by more and more, 2 or 3, start to accept an FA4 as suitable for use in their applications. I still have not seen the lighter viscosities come into play. Like Ken said, 10W30 was the biggest jump even before CK, going from a 1540 to a 1030 to help improve fuel economy. Thinner oil, less resistance to flow, gives you better fuel economy. Now in the FA4 category, we're seeing oils that are 1030, which was not a big jump from the CK 1030, into the FA, which can be down to a 5W30. Same stuff I run in my little truck. It's a different technology, but I'm running a 5W30 viscosity in my Honda pickup truck. That's what we're going to be asking these over-the-road and these heavy equipment drivers to use in their equipment. That's going to be, without education, that's going to be a tough sell. Now, what we lose, and I use this kind of generically, what you lose in viscosity, you gain in chemistry with the new FA4 product. They're more robust, longer drain. We're not only telling you can use a lighter oil, we're telling you can get better fuel economy as well as more durability and longer drain intervals in some cases.
And that's correct, Jim. We're seeing today the 15W40, our old standby oil, is slowly being replaced by let's say the CK 10W30. And the end user is seeing that benefit of that, like you and Ken both said, both with fuel economy and durability. So we can see where the market's heading.
And it's also important to note that, we're getting off on an FA4 discussion, and I want to pull the reins back a bit, because it's important for all of us to express the fact that even running a 10W30 CK4 oil like our Reliant or our Reliant Premium would certainly help promote fuel economy as well. And it would be more than suitable for use in any modern heavy-duty diesel application with the additional emission devices. Lubricants are one of the biggest and quite frankly, one of the easiest improvements that you can make to improve fuel economy. As Jim touched on earlier, the thinner oils decrease friction and really other parasitic energy losses in a vehicle's valve train. Think engine, transmission, differential, even wheel bearings. You know, Nick's probably seen more numbers on this than I have, and maybe you have, Jim, but just making that simple change from a 1540 viscosity to a 10W30 or even a 5W40 viscosity, at least those oils that are designed for the compression ignited or commercial grade engines, you know, you could see a boost in fuel economy anywhere from 1% to 3%. And that could be significant at the end of the year in relationship to your savings. So, you know, as long as the engine hardware will support that reduction in viscosity, I think it would certainly be worthwhile. The other thing to point out is DA has all of those products available to all of the fleet managers and customers that are willing to make that jump from the traditional 1540 viscosity down to the lighter vis. You do have to be careful, and my caveat with making that jump from a heavier viscosity to a lighter viscosity is that, number one, making that jump to a lighter viscosity could certainly lend to more internal and external leakage. You can have loss of system pressure. You can have loss of precision control, which would all lend to premature wear. Now, on the flip side of that coin, if you were to run too heavy a viscosity in your unit, and that's not the discussion, but I'm just interjecting here, you can literally have increased internal friction, which would lend to increased oil temperature. You can have increased power consumption, which would all lend itself very nicely to sluggish operation. And there isn't a fleet manager or customer that ever wants to hear sluggish operation. So I'm just kind of giving you, you know, playing devil's advocate and giving you what could happen either or. But because this discussion is about fuel economy, most units is okay to make that jump down to a lighter viscosity. And the benefit with that, especially if you're running an oil that is known to offer the durability, is that boost in fuel economy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So good points. And I just wanted to frame this too to reiterate what you said, because I think you pointed out a good issue here that we talk a lot and we can get a little over our skis in the CK4 and FA4, and it gets really murky right away. From the fleet perspective and our audience, you know your operations and you know what you're running today. If you're at a 15W40, then maybe it's time to look at a 10W30, and that's where you start. If you're already running a 10W30, can you go to FA4 and eke out even more fuel efficiency? This is kind of an evolutionary situation where we will get there. You know, the diesel engines are trending as we're looking down the barrel of another set of stringent regulations here, where there will come a day where engine OEMs are factory filling with FA4 primarily, and the industry will shift over. But right now, if you're running a 15W40, what I'm hearing is look at 10W30 and that CK API category, and you're going to see a good bump there. Now speaking of that, a bump in fuel efficiency. Speaking of that, how do I know? How do I calculate this? What is my return on investment? I mean, this is what everybody wants to know, right? So what do you guys think? If I want to make the jump to either the 10W30 CK4 or even an FA4, can you give me a ballpark on how I can calculate that efficiency gain?
We absolutely can.
Jason.
We absolutely can. I'm glad you brought that up, because I happen to be able to show you a calculator that was designed that will help you give an estimate. Let me repeat that. An estimate. Now, as Ken and I talked earlier today, and Nick, there are so many variables involved when you're actually saying, I can give you this exact amount of fuel savings. We can't do that, because every driver is different, every piece of equipment is different. There's too many factors. But what we can do is give you kind of an estimate based on just a few things we need to enter. And I'm going to take over the screen here for a minute, if you don't mind. And I'm going to show you guys a fuel calculator. Now, the calculator I'm going to show you is available on our website at www.dalube.com. You can go to that. I believe you select the diesel engine oil, And then when you select it, a calculator will pop up and let you use it if you want to. So it's, well, let's just bring it on, shall we? All right. Help me out, Ken. Nick, can you see it?
I don't believe. There we
There it
go.
is.
You're starting, Jim.
All right. Might be a little bit of a delay there. You should see a picture of our DA, one of our DA trucks.
Yep, we got it.
Am I? All right. Well, that's the picture that'll show up. And as we scroll down, calculate the savings. Interested in savings, enter some information below. And if you have any questions, there's a phone number on here to call. I'd like to thank our marketing manager. That happens to be my phone number. Thank you. To call and we can talk about this. So there's a little caveat here you can read that talks about different things like I mentioned, driving conditions, et cetera, that could be an issue. But what we're going to do here is we're going to look at an estimate on savings that a driver, operator, and or if you got any fleet owners out there, definitely want to pay attention to this because you guys are the ones paying the bill for fuel economy. You ask anybody who operates a piece of heavy equipment or a truck, what's the most expensive maintenance item or most expensive cost for operation? They're going to tell you fuel because it is. And if you look at this thing here, we got distance travel. Now, I've talked to a couple people, and I'm going to use the numbers that I received from our fleet manager here at DA Lubricant Company. He said on average, we run around 100,000 miles annually with one of our trucks. Let's do that. We're going to put in 100,000 miles. That's annual. Typical fuel economy. Now, we were talking earlier, this varies quite a bit depending on the age of your equipment, the driver, all kinds of factors. But we picked a number of 8 miles per gallon because that's kind of what we're doing here at DA with our fleet. So I'm going to put in 8 miles per gallon. Now, let's just round this up to make this nice and easy. Let's just say that an operator or a fleet owner has 100 pieces of equipment. So I'm going to put in 100 trucks. 100 trucks. Now, here in Indiana, I checked this morning on my way in just to get an idea. At one of our stations close by, it was $3.30 a gallon. So you can put in whatever numbers are applicable for your fleet in your area. All right, so let's go over this again. We put in 100,000 miles a year, averaging around 8 miles a gallon. I have 100 trucks or units in my fleet, and fuel economy or fuel cost for diesel is about $3.30. I hit the calculate button. Annually, per truck, costs me $41,250 to put fuel in my truck for a year. What does that mean per fleet? All right. We mentioned our CK4 10W30. So we're going from a 1540 to a 1030. What can I save in cost, annual expenses in fuel by jumping to a C3 for truck? Okay, so here we go. Reduced fuel lube spending. In other words, we save annually $454 per truck in fuel savings by going to a lighter viscosity oil. That reduced us to about 138 gallons of usage, which we were able to gain, and reduced fuel spending by $45,374. Wow, that's for a fleet of 100. So reduced fuel usage savings went down to $13,750 a year. I'm sorry, 45,000 a year.
Right. And Jim,
gallons. That was gallons.
Yeah, but an important thing to show and let people know, with that savings, you're not giving up any of your durability. You're not giving up reliability. You're still having excellent operation of your vehicle. That can go right to your bottom line. And
Absolutely.
A great thing about this, we're all here to support and help that owner operator or that fleet manager achieve these savings by working with them directly on a one-on-one basis too.
Excellent point, Nick. One of the things I like to point out when you're doing this, we look at $45,000 a year and say, that's amazing. This is fuel, okay? Just fuel savings alone. I mean, you're still going to have your other maintenance costs, which we're going to talk about other ways to save that in our next section, how to save additional money or possibly save additional money with oil analysis. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But now we're going to jump over and actually reduce it a little bit farther. We're still going to use the 10W30, but we're going to switch to FA4 technology, or the additive package is going to be a little bit different. Different base oils, different additives, but still a 30-weight engine oil or a 10W30. If you look at how much we were able to reduce fuel and lubricant spending per truck, it $4. So now we're at $866 reduction. We cut that down again, almost double for fuel usage per vehicle per year, which a fleet reduction of, again, double of that. $86,000 a year you were able to reduce and spend less on fuel. 26,250 gallons as opposed to what we were savings as opposed to what we were using before. Now, anybody see any benefit here using this calculator in saving a little bit of money just by switching your engine oil? Ken mentioned that early on. You know, there's all kinds of ways to do it. Like he mentioned, using synthetic oils or lighter viscosity oils in your drivetrain, as well as in your engine, even in your grease on your wheel bearings can make a difference using a synthetic or a lighter viscosity with a more robust package. So if you have any questions on, after you've done your calculation, you want to learn more, you fill this part out at the bottom and hit submit, and somebody will be happy to get back with you and discuss ways that DA Lubricant can help you with your fuel savings just by switching to one of our lighter viscosity oils.
Right.
Any questions on the calculator from Nick, Ken, or before I stop sharing?
No, Jim, I think you covered it very well.
All right.
No,
Again,
and actually, go ahead, Jim.
I'm gonna say that is available on our. Was it back to me now?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. All right. That's available at www.dalube.com. You can go to our website, click on products, select one of our Reliant products, Reliant Premium. I believe even our X92 will have that on there, as well as our Reliant FS, full synthetic 5W40. You click on that, and one of the first things that pops up is going to be that calculator, just so you can use it. So
Okay.
feel free to get on there and play around with it.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that to utilize an FA4 oil, you must have an OEM recognized engine certified for FA4 use. Okay. Some of you are probably wondering what those are. I can tell you just from what we know, Detroit Diesel makes factory fill for, I believe, their DD13, 15, and 16 engines.
13, 15,
Cummins, Mack, Volvo, Navistar all have FA4 listings. I believe PACCAR is still assessing FA4, and Caterpillar is an adamant no. There's no FA4 on the horizon for them, at least for the time being. For those of you that are interested, for what I know about FA4 with the GM, General Motors, and Ford applications, Ford does recommend FA4 1030 in their 3.0 liter Power Stroke diesel. And in relationship to GM, they have the Dexos D fluid. That is that very light 0W20 that they recommend for their 1500 series trucks. And then, of course, the 5W40 FA4 for all of their other diesel units. So just interjecting that in case anybody was wondering.
Right. For sure. I've seen a lot of questions pop up here, a lot of interest around the tool. I do just want to point out that the website URL is on the slide here. You should see. So anyone can go to that link and check out the calculator. I know we had a question of if you had to be a customer, you don't. You can just hop on there. I can plug in numbers. I was plugging in numbers all yesterday. It's a fun thing to play with. The other part is we're getting a lot of questions about that kind of comes down to what does this mean to me, right? What does it mean to my operation? What does it mean moving from a 15 weight to a 5 weight, from a 10 weight to the 5? And it seems like, I know you mentioned the contact thing, but like anything in the fleet application, everyone's going to be different. Every operation's going to be different. Every spec is going to be different. So I think, in my interpretation, this is a great starting point, but where, I guess I would recommend to all our attendees to reach out to your oil suppliers or potential oil supplier partners and ask them these questions. Because if I can get in contact with you, you all can give me a better idea of what it means to me specifically. Is that fair?
That's right, Jason. Absolutely well said. And we certainly encourage anyone to reach out to us. That's why we're here. So
we want to form that partnership. We want to help educate, and it benefits everybody then.
For sure. I never know if Jim's joking and if that was his actual cell phone number, but if it is, please call him because he's a wealth of information. I call him when I talk to him all the time. These guys have all the answers. Perfect. Okay. So you've alluded to this too, and I know that when it comes to the engine, nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing happens before you see what's actually going on, right? So engine oil analysis, I'm guessing before, during, after any change you're making is a key component, right? The old adage of measure twice and cut once. I probably want to test a lot and make one change and then see what happens. So what do you guys recommend in way of engine oil testing and what services do you offer there?
Awesome. I'll take most of this, Ken, Nick, if you don't mind. I think we have a slide on the next slide there, if you would.
Yep, sorry. I got it.
That's all right.
I was too into the calculator. Now, all right, we're on oil.
All right, there we go. There's a great picture of oil viscosity bath. Okay, when one of the things that you will hear us say constantly is there is really no way to see what's going on with your oil or your engine or your transmission or other components without getting a good look at what's going on inside. And the only way you're going to do that is to have that oil, that used oil, analyzed. You ask a question at the beginning, when do you sample at the beginning, how often, whatever. In my opinion, the more samples you get, the more data you have, the more information you have. But Ken, Nick, and I are kind of oil geeks. We really like this stuff. We look at oil analysis reports and we cipher them out, so to speak, kind of like we're CSI investigators. We're really trying to get in there and see what's going on so we can come up with answers. Believe it or not, it's exciting. It's fun to see what's going on and be able to help your customer know what's wearing, why it's wearing, what can we do to prevent it, or what changes can we make. And also another one is extended drain intervals. Is that possible? Let me start off by doing what I do at every presentation, and Ken's been doing it all along, and I'm very proud of him for that. Do what the OEM says when it comes to drain intervals, for example. If the OEM says go XYZ and you're under warranty, go XYZ, and it's their responsibility at that point. If you're out of warranty and you want to try to extend your drain interval, you might be, let me reemphasize that, you might be able to do that with a comprehensive oil analysis program. So here at DA, we offer that program, just so you know how DA operates or where we are with this, because us guys here know that us people here at DA know our name's not as well known as some of the other big names that are out there that you see on the billboards or on the TV commercials. But we've been around for over 100 years. And short of the military and the railroad, no one has done oil analysis longer than DA Lubricant Company. So we basically pioneered oil analysis. Now that's grown, and there's companies out there like crazy that do it. We as a manufacturer obviously focus on manufacturing and making a quality product, but we do offer oil analysis for our customers. But we even have customers that aren't using our products that use our oil analysis program, and that's okay. They purchase the package, or it's a box of 10 from us, and when they purchase that box, that's the sampling cost. Once you bought the bottles, you bought your sample. You'll get the results either emailed to you, or you'll have access online. There's also a really easy and efficient app, that regular app you can download on your cell phone, on your smartphone, and use, which takes pictures of a barcode. And I think we went to a meeting and talked about the accuracy rates, because a lot of people are still using the paper versions. You fill out the miles on your truck, the hours on the oil, how long it's been in there, what oil you're using. All that's all handwritten out and sent it in. A lot of room for human error when you do that kind of thing. Plus, that goes into the lab, and they have to interpret it. And if there are any people spelling or handwriting is like mine, there's a lot of room for interpretation in what's on that paper. So that can delay things a little bit. But by using the app, it's like 97% efficient. I went through yesterday. I've got some samples on hold that I review every morning for a cut with them, what's going on. And there were, I think, 10 of the 11 were paper errors from people handwriting them in. So it's a very efficient system. We're happy to do training on it. We do in-person or online training with that. There's great tutorials on the website for it. But anyway, that was selling our oil sampling program. Now let's talk about what it does. Like I said earlier, the only way you can tell what's going on inside that engine is take a look at those used oil analysis. If you want to extend your drain interval, you have to sample. That's the only way you can do it. And since we're talking about fuel economy and money savings, that's the reason I bring up this portion of it as far as extending drain intervals. But what sounds funny is here we are trying to sell oil, but we're telling customers they might be able to use less oil if they do that. So, but you know what? We'd rather have our customers using our products, getting the most they can out of it, and we'll make more later. It's okay. But the determination on that, we look at the wear metals. We look at wear metals, see what's going on, and we can look at that and decide based on the component where that type of metal might be coming from. We can look at possible causes. We see a lot of them come in with fuel dilution. Okay, you probably got a leaky injector or something simple like that. That's something you can use. We can give advice to the customer on what to look for. We see excessive lead. We start seeing that in the engine. We're going to look at either cam bushings or most likely engine bearings as a source for that. What's causing it? Well, we look over and see oxidation rates are too high. Okay, why is the oxidation too high? Well, we're going 100,000 miles between oil changes. Probably the issue. So we can cut that back a little bit. Or we look at these numbers, and I had talked to a guy this morning with his fleet of heavy equipment. He's doing conservative oil changes at 250 hours on his construction equipment. And he says, everything looks fantastic. I asked him a couple of the things, and he went over it, and he said, those all look good. I said, well, based on what you told me, have you considered possibly extending your drain interval? Now, he had fleets back in 2005 and older. So he did have a couple of newer pieces, but they were still out of warranty. And I said, we can look at that. Let's start running some more samples, do more than just at a drain. Let's do them at mid-drain samples and see where we're at and where our peak is. We don't want those spikes to come up. We want to change the oil just before that happens. So that's where we're going to be at with the oil analysis program. Through DA Lubricant Company, you can also get information about that by calling that number that you saw earlier, or Ken or Nick, or just go to our website and it'll be forwarded to one of us to give you some ideas on that. So basically, just talked about the program, not exactly all of the details, but Ken, Nick, do you have anything that you want to share?
I was just going to say, Jim, what I like the most about oil analysis is that not only does it give you a nice snapshot of the health of the oil at any given time, but of the hardware as well. And what's nice about DA is that we have individuals that are trained to interpret what those analysis or the analysis in general is telling us. And we're very successful at passing on that information to our customers to assure that their fleet is at the optimal performance. If a customer or fleet manager expects their equipment to endure and really maintain performance, They simply can't sacrifice values just to save a few bucks. That's the bottom line. And when you're pushing extended service, okay, or service intervals to reduce maintenance costs, okay, I certainly understand that. We all certainly understand that. But it should never be at the expense of the hardware, okay? So oil analysis is that one weapon in the arsenal that, if utilized properly, can not only help with the equipment longevity, but also just equate to better maintenance in general. Just real quick, when it comes to DA and why somebody should use not only our products that we'll get into here shortly, but also our oil analysis program. You know, DA operates under a very strict quality management system that is designed to facilitate continuous improvement and effectiveness. Now, that equates to consistent product quality and customer satisfaction. Let me say that again. Consistent quality and customer satisfaction. All of us on this line today would put a DA product up against anybody's in the market, on par, if not superior to, because of what and how we make our products. That's the DA way.
Yep. And again, this is just another tool to help everybody reduce that cost per mile out there on the road. So it's just another, like Ken and Jim said, it's another bullet we can help you guys and out there reduce that cost per mile of your operations.
So we can get into the products. Obviously, we have our Reliant line, 1030, 1040. This is your traditional, conventional mineral-based 1540 and 10W30 varieties meeting CK4. They are not applicable in spark-ignited or service-related gasoline-powered engines. They are diesel-specific. Same with our Reliant Premium. Again, CK4 offered in a 10W30 and 15W40 respectively. We also offer our Reliant Premium Plus, which again is that FA4 10W30. Again, only applicable in engines requiring FA4 technology. We also offer the Reliant FS, or full synthetic, in 530 and 540 viscosity. Where would you run a Reliant FS? Your Sprinter vans, your transit buses. And then we offer our Reliant Monogrades, which the name best describes it. Those are single grade, monograde, if you will, linear viscosity oils that meet the older API commercial category, as well as older obsolete spark ignited or service related S category oils.
Yeah. But
Jim, I can. You want to discuss X92, or would you prefer?
I don't. That's your baby.
Okay.
I think
Sounds like a secret
running
project.
close on time.
Let me jump in here real quick, because I do want to mention two things. We're gonna survey is going to appear on your screen for everybody while we have a few minutes here left. Let us know what you think. We want to make sure we're giving you webinars that are useful and insightful for you. And we have a lot of questions to get through here. So I want to kick off a couple of these. Please keep sending them in. We're going to try to get through as many as we can here in the next 10 minutes. But these gentlemen will get a list of all the questions and be able to follow up. So even if we don't get to your question here, they will still get the question and they will still be able to follow up. So keep sending them in, and we'll just pile through as many as we can here. So I'm going to kick it off here with a question. Going back to the idea of going from a 15W to a 10W, right? We have a question coming in that asks, are there issues with higher operating temperatures when moving from a 15W to a 10W?
No. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, you're giving us the 10 weight number at the bottom. That's basically, for lack of a better term, your startup viscosity. In other words, when the oil is cold or at first startup, it's going to operate like let's say if it's a 1540, it's going to operate like a 15. The top end is still a 40 weight or a 30 weight. Once the oil is up to operating temperature, we check that at 100 C. We get to that point, the oil will perform like either a 30 or a 40 weight, depending on which product you're using. So the lower end is more about flow than it is about protection. Well, I will say it's all about protection, but more about flow than it is about your high speed. It's more of a boundary layer than a hydrodynamic layer.
Yes, and remember, the W in a 10W30 or 15W40 does not indicate weight. It has nothing to do with weight. It actually stands for winter, and it identifies that oil as being best suited for cold ambient temperature startup conditions, the quicker pumpability and the flowability. But in relationship, Jason, to your question, the newer chemistries today, the newer additive packages, the advancement in the base oil technology all lend to better address the high temperatures in today's engines.
And by going to that 10 SAE 10, Jason, compared to the 15, like Ken and Jim said, you're going to see a better full fluid flow at startup, which equates to more protection up in that upper end of that valve train. So it's actually a great benefit, and you're not losing anything.
Good point. Good point, Nick.
Very good. Have kind of an easy one here for you to field. Going back to your products, you gave us the rundown of the products you offer and the DA difference there. Is that available for all makes, models, heavy-duty engines?
Provided they call for a CK4 or FA, yes. They have. If there are certain OEM requirements that will need to be checked to be sure that it's suitable for use in those applications. But the majority of all your majors, yes.
Right, perfect. And that's again on the OEM. The OEM has the specification for what the oils have to meet, and everybody has it available. So check with your OEM.
Always bow to the OEM. Yes.
Okay. So something I think we touched on that we wanted a little clarification. Had a question come in here about asking if you can explain the difference of high temp, high shear oils. What does that mean?
Ken?
Well, in a general sense, the higher the high temp, high shear, the better the oil does at protecting bearings under highly stressed, highly loaded conditions. Okay, so the newer oils today have all been designed, especially the FA4, with the lower high temp, high shear, but that is not in a negative light. Okay, so if you look at the elementals on, let's say, our Reliant Premium Plus, the typical properties, if you're not the elementals, the typical properties, you'll see the reference to high temp, high shear. And in comparison to the traditional 1540 CK4, you will see a difference in that. Again, that's all designed with a specific purpose in mind. Remember, everything is fuel economy and emissions driven. So obviously there is a difference between a high temp, high shear in an FA4 or even one of the lighter viscosities versus more of the traditional. And I'm talking the synthetic blend and the full synthetic varieties.
With that high temp, high shear, Jason, you see better fuel economy compared to the older API shear properties. So again, we're moving everything to better fuel economy.
Right, and that's separate from the full synthetic or semi-synthetic, right? That goes toward more of the composition of the oils there and what you're using, your formulation. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct, yes. And the lighter viscosity that accompanies it. So that's correct.
Right. Going back to the type of oils, and I'm trying to combine this in the one that kind of hit everybody's question, because I think the questions they were asking were really specific to their operations, but had a lot of interest actually in the 5W30 or the lower, kind of going down even from a 10W30. Can you give us any tips on what we might want to look for, or what fleets might want to look for if they're considering going down to a 5W30 from a 10W or even a 15W40 if they want? Do you recommend that far of a drop, or what's kind of the game plan for the 5W30 world?
Well, again, Jim touched on it earlier. Make sure you consult the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, and their information that they set out. That would be a significant jump in viscosity from a 1540 down to a 530. Remember the issues that I shared regarding running too light of viscosity. You don't want to do anything that's going to promote that premature wear, if not some form of catastrophic failure in your system, because you're running too light of viscosity for what that system is designed for. So again, very critical before anything is done to consult with the OEM. The general rule of thumb is one viscosity grade up or down
Right.
is acceptable, okay? But knowing why they would want to make that significant jump, we understand, but make sure it's applicable with the OEM.
And just to top that off, just to think about it, we covered it just a minute ago. When you're going from a 1030 to a 530, at operation temperature, nothing's changed. You're still a 30 weight. All you've done is, like Nick was talking about, increase the flow so you get that lighter oil will get to those components quicker. And you're dealing with tighter tolerances, things like that. You're going to need lighter viscosity oils. So the jump from 1030 to 530 to me is not significant. 1540 to 530, it's a pretty good commitment. And like Ken said, make sure that's okay to do with your OEM.
Well, and to go back to stress the point about oil analysis, right? Everybody runs different. Everybody runs different specs, runs different environments, runs different mileage. The only way to see it is in that engine oil analysis. You got to look at it.
Yep.
Okay, kind of a fun one here that's kind of a forward, future-looking one. I think this will be about all the time we'll get to do on the air, but I wanted to throw this out to you to get your guys' perspective because we are talking a lot about a lot of advanced oil technology here, increased fuel economy. From your oil seat as the oil suppliers, what indications are you seeing from engine OEMs? Is this trend going to continue? Are they going to continue to push for lower viscosities? What are you seeing, and what are you planning for in the future?
Well, I think the EPA is about done with emissions, short of getting rid of diesel engines altogether. I'm not sure how much more they can go. So the focus, like I said, for the past few years has been fuel economy. We've already adjusted what's coming out of the stacks as much as we possibly can, I think. But as far as fuel economy and savings that way, I don't see a decrease or even a slowing down of means to do that, either by oil manufacturers with lighter viscosity products. Just throw this out here, just even though it's all kind of off topic, for the automotive industry, we're seeing 0W16s, and there's talk of a 0W8 coming to the United States before too much longer. So I don't think the trend's going away for heavy duty or automotive.
Not to mention Ford's news a couple days ago about going all electric by, believe it was 2035, and it seems like all the OEMs are following suit. Now that's for the PCMO realm, not necessarily for the truck realm. So I think it's going to be, combustion ignited process. It's going to be around for a while. So.
Well, yeah, for sure. And one quick note on that. I mean, even in the heavy duty space, right, electric trucks are starting to come onto the roads in very specialized applications. But the race for fuel economy, continues. Everyone wants to operate more efficiently. One fun component of that, I think you alluded to it earlier with the reduced ash emissions and the reduced emissions overall, is diesel is still a component of decarbonization strategies, right? The fun thing about improved fuel economy also means you're burning less fuel. So congratulations, you've also decarbonized and released less emissions into the air, right? You get credit for that. That is not only an investment in fuel efficiency, but lots of fleets are starting to have pressure to have sustainability goals, to be able to show those goals, right? To the point earlier, the engine oil is a component of that as you move forward in your specs and new truck purchases. Okay, let me just check out the questions right here. We got a lot of really specific ones. One last quick one. We're right at 3 o'clock. One last quick one. Do you see a CL4 coming down the line? Is API going to get a new category here anytime soon?
Haven't seen anything.
Honestly, I haven't seen anything, Jason. That doesn't mean that it won't or that it's not on the horizon. We just haven't seen anything that suggests that if there is even a CL4, if it's going to be called something else, like the FA4 was created.
Right.
I do. Let me just very quickly interject that I wasn't sure if we're going to be able to talk about it, and I know we're pressed for time, but DA does possess our Reliant X92, which is really designed for the process natural gas fueled engines. Not to mention its true multi-fleet identity, which means it is suitable for use for the traditional heavy-duty diesel, as well as any spark-ignited or service-related gasoline powered engines. So your CNG, LNG, LPG fueled engines, the X92 would cover, as well as your traditional 1540 or 1030 diesel engines, and your spark ignited engines, your gasoline fueled engines. So I didn't want to say goodbye without mentioning the Reliant X92. That is also available in a 1540 and a 1030 variety. And again, as Jim alluded to earlier, that's another product that you can use on our fuel calculator. So,
and that is a great product. I call that all fleet.
All fleet.
That's an all fleet
all
oil. You know, so it's a great product. We invented it, come out with it about 2 years ago, and we've had tremendous success with. So it's a really good product.
There's 26 million natural gas vehicles operating worldwide. North America has the lowest regional share. It's actually less. It's around 200,000 units, or less than 1%. So it's a growing entity. I'm not saying, the bigger, the electric makes the news, but there are, think municipality, bus fleets, those units that are literally using CNG. It's going to be around for a while. So we're excited that we have a product and we have a horse in the race, if you will.
Nice, very quick. Any quick resources that I can go to in terms of training? Anything on any background information? What do you recommend to anyone out there? Because questions are still coming in. Where's their next stop here?
www.dalube.com. If they go to our website, we list every industry that we cover. All somebody has to do is click on that tab, and they'll receive a plethora of information and assistance.
Great information on our product data sheets, the available safety data sheets, and our tech service department is phenomenal. All of our team members are very skilled, very knowledgeable, and are just an email or a phone call away. Please utilize our services.
Very good, very good. I appreciate you. And everyone's going to get an on-demand link so you can come back and check out the info again. I know it was packed with a lot of great info. I know we've gone over time, but this is what happens when I get together with the DA Lube groups. We can talk forever. We appreciate everyone hanging on here at the end. And thank you again for tuning in today. It's been a blast. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having us.